Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's make an amazing experimental mastering chain. But first, if you have a mix that you need to have mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Setting up, routing. The chain that we're setting up today is definitely unique. Although we'll be separating the mix into mid and side and left and right, I did do some null testing with a control stereo mix at multiple stages to ensure that phase cancellation wasn't an issue. Now starting with the routing, I'm going to duplicate the mix and use the free plugin MSED to make one channel the mid and the other the side, letting me process them separately. Now these will be routed to a collective stereo bus, which has had its output turned off. Instead, I've set up two sends from this collective bus on which I've used a gain utility plugin to isolate the left channel for one send and the right channel for the other. Lastly, these left and right channels are routed to my stereo output. Now, as you can see, there's going to be some processing at each stage, but I'll explain this as we go. But first, let's take a listen to normalized versions of the full before and after.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
Saturation on mid and side. First up, in terms of processing, I'm going to insert this PSP saturator on both my mid and side tracks. I could use different settings on each, giving each image a distinct character. Now on the mids, I use this RAM setting and utilize the low frequency saturation settings. On the side, I use the hard valve setting and introduce some high frequency saturation above 9 kHz. Additionally, I drove the signal into the processor and compensated with the output. Now for both, I used 4x oversampling and increased the smooth function to reduce aliasing even more. Let's take a listen to how varying saturation between the mid and the side gives us more control over our master's timbre.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Split EQ on mid and side. Up next, I used two instances of this split EQ by Eventide, one for each image. Now on the mid image, I reduced some of the lows and the mid-tonal aspects to balance the sound, and also some of the transient aspects in the highs to reduce the vocal sibilance. On the side, I cut some of the overall lows, boosted some of the tonal aspects in the low mids, and some transients in the highs. Now this is going to give the side image depth with the tonal boost and some punchiness and transient detail in the highs. Let's take a listen.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
High frequency exciter. I wanted to brighten up the track, so I used this Air EQ and exciter on each image separately so that I could dial in the settings that are best suited for each one. Now this processor is really powerful, so notice that I used very low settings on both. Let's take a listen to how this exciter brightens up the mid and the side image.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
Needed mid de-essing. Now, even though I decreased some sibilance using the split EQ, I still needed to control the vocal sibilance. With this Weiss de-esser, I focused the compression on the highest frequencies, and I ensured that it was only triggered during the vocal sibilance. Then, I routed it before my Fresh Air plugin from last chapter. I figured this was best, since now the de-esser won't have to work as hard as it would have if it had been inserted after the Air EQ. Let's take a listen, and notice how this balances the mid image's high frequencies.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
Parallel compression and overdrive. Moving on to the collective mid-side track, I inserted this Invigorate plugin to introduce parallel compression, limiting, and overdrive. With the input and output tone at the bottom, I emphasized the lows and the highs going into the processing, and then compensated with the output tone. I didn't want the effect to be too aggressive, so I used the mix dial in the middle to find just the right amount of parallel processing. Let's take a listen to it being enabled and notice how the compression, the limiting, and the harmonics from the overdrive section create a fuller sound.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
Independent left-right compression. From the collective mid and side track, our signal is split into left and right channels, on which I've inserted event-tied omnipressors with identical settings to subtly compress the left and the right separately. Now, since they're inserted on isolated channels, they can respond more accurately to the amplitude. Notice that I only achieved a little compression and used a low ratio to avoid changing the sound or losing my dynamics. Let's take a listen.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. Left-right, identical limiting. Similar to last chapter, I used two limiters with identical settings on the left and the right channels. Again, this allows each processor to respond to the incoming signal more accurately by avoiding being triggered by the other channel. I introduced some of the enhanced function, and I also used a softer knee. The attenuation is subtle, but by using this method, we can achieve a louder overall sound without the need for aggressive attenuation. So let's take a listen to how these limiters make the mix louder, fuller due to the enhanced function, and again, notice how little actual attenuation is being introduced.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
EQ on master output. Let's move on to the final stage of this session, starting with this EQ on the master output. With it, I began by attenuating the lows on the side image to avoid unwanted phase issues and to center the bass. Then, I boosted some of the side image's low mids. Now I waited to cut the side image's lows until the master output instead of on my isolated side image channel, since some processors add low frequency content to the side image even if you cut these frequencies beforehand. Now on the mid image, I dipped some of the lows that I felt were too aggressive and did the same to the low mids and the highs. Let's take a listen and notice how the lows sound more focused and the overall mix sounds a little more balanced.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
Final limiting stage. Last up, let's insert one more limiter and very subtly push the signal into the ceiling. Now I like finding a limiter with multiple algorithms since this lets me find the tone and the dynamics that I want. Then I'm going to disable any true peak limiting and instead use oversampling. Next, notice that I'm achieving an integrated LUFS of -9, which is pretty loud, but between my earlier limiters and this one, I'm barely attenuating the peaks. Now if I turn on true peak detection to show where true peaking would occur, I could just compensate for this with the output, which is something that I'd want to do anyway if the final master was being uploaded and encoded on some streaming services. So let's take a listen to this final stage of limiting and let me know if this experimental mastering setup is something that you're going to try.
You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy. You're someone I used to know, but nobody said it'd be easy.
If you have a mix that you need to have mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.